Okay, joining us now is Ade Adefeko, and he is the chairman, Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. That's Nasima.
The Export Action Group of Nasima.
Indeed, Export Action Group. Okay, and he's also the VP of Olam. We had the largest rice, milling company in Nigeria, somewhere in Nasarawa there. Okay, so let's begin this way. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So much is, hammering Nigeria's food security on every side. You have inflation at 16.5%, unemployment on the one hand, downsizing, right-sizing, and all of that. I'm just wondering, it's a no-brainer asking, how did we get here?
Well, good analysis, good commentary, good questions. How did we get to this sorry pass? Well, let me quickly put things in context and in perspective. As a bit of, give a bit of a background. It's important when you're talking about agriculture to put it in proper context. Nigeria has about, our total land area is around about 92.4 million hectares, square meters. The cultivable land available or arable land available is around about 84 million. And what we have cultivated so far is around about 32 million. We have about farming families of around about 14 million farming families. So what we're saying is that per family, you have probably about 1.8 hectares. So that, if you speak to that, it tells you that there's a lot of underutilization. And the underutilization as a result of what? Agriculture in the 70s used to contribute around about 60% to GDP. Right now it's contributing less than 40%. But, and we're talking about moving away from oil. So we're talking about moving away from oil to non-oil. And non-oil, what are we talking about here? It's agriculture. Agriculture drives most economies. I was, before I came on set, I was discussing with you and telling you about the impending food crisis we might face in Africa. And Nigeria is not immune to that. But it's important to put in again, give you a bit of a kind of scenario. You see, in Nigeria is Africa's largest economy. After Nigeria, you have South Africa. And in terms of population, Nigeria is number one population-wise, and number two is Ethiopia. And number three is probably DRC. Okay? And for us, if the Nimet is talking about flooding in Nigeria. But if you look at this year, two countries primarily in Africa are facing severe drought. And you're talking about Ethiopia and South Africa. And the drought is occasioned by what? By climate change. So the climate change needs to be spoken to. And I think the Minister of Environment, I think she's doing a hell of a job. Don't forget she was former special advisor to Ban Ki-moon on Millennium Development Goals. What you have right now is you don't have MDGs anymore, you have what you call SDGs.
Yes.
Sustainable Development Goals. So for us in Nigeria, we need to take food security seriously. And to be fair to the current government, they are addressing a few of these issues. The only problem is that they are taking their time. And time is not our friend. Because right now we have, in agriculture, you have two farming cycles. You have the wet season and the dry season. So when you've missed one, you mustn't miss the other. Otherwise, you can't meet up. Do we have a strategic grain reserve? Do we have strategic reserves? I do not think that we have a very dependable strategic reserve where you can say, you know what, in an era where you have food security, go to the silos and release what the Americans call the strategic grain reserve. They always have the strategic grain reserve in terms of wheat and everything, corn and all that. Do we have that yet? I don't think so. But what the current government has done, again, and I've done quite well, rightly, is that they've done what you call soil mapping. So every soil mapping basically tells you that of the so-called arable land we have, not all the arable land we have can speak to all the crops, or can speak to every crop. So you know which soil is good for which crop. That's a good start. Because we always talk about policy, we talk about getting it right. Getting it right first time, getting it right all the time. And I think the Minister of Agriculture, Chibaudu Ogbe, has started well in that vein. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the former government didn't get it right. They started. But what I'm saying is that the current government is building upon. You see, we need to get away from what you call policies by slogans or policies by electoral cycles, whereby one government leaves and another government comes in and jettisons everything.
But that seems to be Nigerians' reading.
Yes, but fortunately, in the area of agriculture, and with this government, they have not done that in agriculture. I can only speak to agriculture because that is the area which I play.
Okay, now let's get to this issue now. Every year there are always projections, there are always forecasts, especially by NIMET, who when they see the weather and how things are going to turn. Now this year there's going to be, from their projection, there's going to be less rainfall from what they have said and all of that. Now, if we project into what the year is going to look like from their projection, how bad will things get?
Well, I'm not a weather analyst. But from the food angle, I think I don't think it will be too bad, but it will be bad enough. Okay, I'm not trying to be political, but I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be diplomatic either. But I'm just trying to speak to what I know. You see, NIMET have come up with their stats. Sometimes these stats have what you call error margins. Okay, but again, as a nation, if you plan, these things don't catch you unawares. For me, I think let's take one of our staples, rice. Nigeria consumes 7 million tons of rice. We produce 2.7 million tons. So we have a gap of 4.3, which has to be taken care of either by importation or whichever way you want to. But government says by the year 20, I'm not quite sure whether it's 2017 or 2018 now, that rice importation will stop.
Yeah, that Nigeria will actually be self-sufficient in rice.
I mean,
how realistic is that?
That's a mirage. That's a mirage. Right now, you are doing per hectare around about 2 to 3 tons per hectare. When the average in Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso is around about 10, 12, 14. So you can see that our yields are a problem. And our yields are a problem because of what? Poor soil quality, inputs, fertilizer. People talk about fertilizer. Fertilizer comes for crops, but you have to get the right mix. It can't be the same mix for every crop. For cocoa, for cashew, for sesame, and for cotton. No. So you have different mixes for different areas, which is why I said in my intro, I said the cultivable land we've only just scratched the surface. But you have to understand that not every cultivable land that is available is good for X or Y. So doing the soil mapping and the soil analysis and soil tests by the Ministry of Agriculture is a very good good test. And subnational governments must take it seriously. You see, our problem is that...
Do we have an idea how long this soil mapping will take? I mean,
it's happened.
How long it will take, for government to now attack agriculture the way it really should? Because there are people who are already saying that government is just paying lip service to the whole idea of diversifying.
To a large extent, I don't want to absolve government. But what I want to tell government, and I want to appeal to government, and I'm saying this in my capacity as chairman of Nasima Export Advocacy Group on the one hand, and as a player in the agricultural space, as the largest agribusiness and food company in Nigeria as well, on the Olam side, what we're doing, you have to allow the private sector come in. Government should be enablers, provide a enabling environment in terms of policy framework, and leave the rest to the players to come in. And when they come in, try and handhold them, because agriculture in Nigeria still is handholding. We have a lot of farmers. You see, agriculture should be treated as a business. You have to have what you call commercial agriculture. Right now, we still have what you call subsistence agriculture, and we can't go there. Look at farming population. The average age of farmers in Nigeria is between 50, and 70. Tell me what a 50-year-old is. Yes, I'm giving you that. I'm giving you that range. Let me be a bit nice. Let's say between 45 and 70. That is still, I mean, meanwhile, you're talking about, so family is not sexy. So you find out that people who are within the age of about 20, between 20 and 45, say to themselves, you know what, I don't want to have anything to do with it. Because for them, agriculture is still tilling and all that. You have to go to the stage of mechanized. And people have, in other countries and in other climes, people are talking about greenhouse. At this point in time when we have problems like this, we should be talking about greenhouse. When you culture, everything is there in greenhouse. So all these floods or no floods doesn't help you. Your tomato, your lettuce, your cabbage and all that is there. Why do you think you have fresh produce all year round?
I like to use the word glamorize. How can government glamorize agriculture in such a way that, you find younger people, people who have all the energy in the world to till the land?
Our major problem, one of our problems in Nigeria again has been, it comes back to policy. Land. Okay, land is not accessible and is not available for every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And land is still held by the government, particularly by the subnationals. And again, let me quickly speak to this. It is important and imperative that people should not believe that it's only the Ministry of Agriculture at the federal level that should be doing something. Governments at the subnational level should be doing it. Look at the case of Lagos. Lagos has signed an MOU with Kebbi in the area of rice. Good development, but the question you ask yourself is, why Kebbi that far? But again, it's a good first step, and you have to start from somewhere. Like I was telling you about the rice revolution. Those states are states that produce a huge quantum of rice. But you see, rice, for you to be able to have what you call milled rice, you need to have farms. If you don't have farms, where does the paddy come from? It's the paddy that you take to the mill, and that mill is the one that brings out the rice.
All right.
And the only local rice, there are a few states that have local rice. I mean, you have the rice from Anambra, Bakaliki rice, and all that. And of course, the Olam rice, which is the Mama's Pride, which is the local rice from Nasarawa. That's the largest rice facility in Africa. It's a $120 million investment. But in spite of that, Olam still produces only 5 to 7% of Nigeria's rice needs. So what I was basically saying now is that if you have many more Olams who will come in, just provide the living environment, and we can speak to that, meeting that target. But right now, we're not there. And we should stop this sloganeering by electoral cycles that in the next 2-3 years we'll be self-sufficient. What have you put in place? You understand me? You want to increase production in geometric progression without providing the environment for you to even start arithmetically.
All right, now from the projections, we see that there are likelihoods that there could be drought in parts of the country this year, and they could also be flooding in parts at the peak of the rainfall. From what we get. How does that threaten the availability of food this year?
There has to be a handshake, a proper handshake between the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Water Resources. Because a lot of even our agriculture is mostly rain-fed. It's not fed by irrigation. If it was fed by irrigation, life would have been a bit easier. It is rain-fed. And rain-fed is, yes, it helps you to an extent. But with proper dams, I mean, I don't know how many, the census of the dams have been done. I think I was with the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Water Resources a while back, and he was speaking to all what was available in terms of the dam. And he has done another good job as well in saying that, listen, you know what, we have a lot of dams here. We want to concession a few of these dams so that, but there has to be that handshake. And some of these dams can be leased to companies that are already involved in agriculture. Look at what I have in Nasarawa. I'm a government of myself in Nasarawa. I provide water, I provide everything. So it's a bit difficult and tedious. Look at the prices of rice right now. Prices of rice shot to about 17,000.
About 18,000.
It's just not come down. It's just not come down, and that was because of the fasting then. You know, and right now it's come down to around about 12, 13, 14.
Okay, now let's give our viewers perspectives on some of these things. Now, food security has become an issue of global concern in recent times. Even Nigeria is not spared. The country also faces huge food security challenges with a growing population of more than 170 million.
Okay, so let's take a trip down memory lane. Data from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization shows that Nigeria had a big presence in the international agriculture markets between 1950 and the late 60s. Trade in agricultural produce such as cocoa, cotton and groundnuts, among others, generated foreign exchange for the country to kickstart its infrastructure development, but that has changed now.
Now, in the oil boom era of 1970s, things really changed. Agriculture steadily declined to the extent that Nigeria resorted to food importation to supplement the low agricultural output in the country. So what's the reality, I must say?
Indeed. Now, food production has not kept pace with population growth. The result of this is the declining levels of national food self-sufficiency. The 2015 Global Food Security Index, conducted by the Economist Group, ranked Nigeria 91 out of 109 countries in the study, using the core indices of affordability of food, availability, quality and safety. So let's take a look at the rating.
Now, on affordability, Nigeria is rated as low as 22.8%. On availability of food, the country is rated at 45.9%. Quality and safety of food, minus 48.3%, and then an overall score of 37.1%. Someone would say that's really
dismal,
a very poor performance there.
Now, despite the country's abundant human and natural resources, Nigeria is still unable to feed her citizens. The production hurdles faced by farmers have significantly limited their performance in growing food for the nation. And farmers have identified climate change, low manpower, poor transportation network, lack of storage facilities, poor financing, and the absence of mechanization as some of the problems limiting the growth of the agricultural sector.
Now, all these, they say, culminate in the huge post-harvest losses, especially during period of bumper harvest. Now, over the decades now, successive governments have made efforts to implement policies that would ensure food security by churning out programs directed at cushioning food shortages.
Now, the Jonathan administration launched the Youth Employment in Agriculture program, YEP, created to develop a generation of 750,000 commercial farmers and agriculture business. The Buhari administration introduced the Anchor Borrowers program to reduce commodity importation, conserve external reserves, reduce the level of poverty among smallholder farmers, create jobs, and assist rural smallholder farmers to grow from subsistence to commercial production levels. Okay, so let's go back a little, with our guests right here, Adefeko, in the studio. 22.8% when it comes to the issue of availability. The Minister of Agriculture himself said recently that Nigeria by 2050,
yes,
will go hungry.
Very true. Very true. If we continue at this rate. So we need to address it. And those facts are facts that speak for themselves. And they are facts that are very serious facts in this face of current headwinds. I mean, right now, it's unfortunate, but we can't keep lamenting. We have to do something about it. I mean, there are various, I'm not a fan of intervention funds because they just throw money at the issue. It's important to have a clearly articulated policy which speaks to the issue directly. I think farmers should be encouraged by giving them inputs and fertilizer. The last administration started with the GES. The current administration should improve it upon it, or if not happy with it, revamp it. Okay? Right now, in this season, the season we are right now, no fertilizer. Farmers don't have fertilizers yet. Fertilizers have not been released yet, which is unfortunate. And you usually have 2-3 month cycles for crops to come.
In spite of the moves, by the last administration to get fertilizer to the farmers, to ensure that the farmers actually get fertilizer and all of that.
Yes.
What's happened with that now?
No, you see, it started well and it continued well. But the problem is that somewhere along the line as well, of course, the Nigerian factor came in. And again, sometimes you had some of the fertilizer which was given to farmers having dust. Not fertilizer, you open the bag and you find that you had dust. But to be fair to the former Minister of Agriculture, he set the machinery in motion. He put it in place. So the best that can be done now is to improve upon it. But what I'm saying right now is that we should stop this policy of, right now we're in a state of inertia. Not much is happening. You know what the issues are, then deal with them. If you have a problem, and again, one thing I must speak to, our research agencies, the likes of FIRO, the likes of IITA. These are the people that will help you with research and come up with improved seedlings.
Okay, we'll come back to this certainly. Now, we're going out on TVC Entertainment, but viewers there can continue with the TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria, Concert Channel 190, DSTV 418.
Go TV 45 and ACTV 510. We're looking at the impact of the flood forecast on Nigeria's food security. We'll be right back after this break.
If you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and we are discussing the projections of the NIMET for the year and the impact and implications on food security in the studio. When we have the Vice President, Olam, Nigeria, and he's also the Chairman, Nasima Export Action Group, Advocacy Group, in the person of Ade Adefeko. We've been looking at this issue. Now, let's talk about the issue of, for instance, what really constitutes food safety when they talk about the safety of food?
Well, you see, food safety speaks to food security, okay? But speaks to food security in a sense that talks about the fact that, you know, I mean, a lot of what you produce, okay, you should have something saved for the rainy day. That's what do we as Nigerians save for the rainy day? In the earlier clip, you talked about the fact that back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, cocoa, cashew, sesame, cotton, and the likes. Well, I mean, those were our staples, and those are things we were exporting. We're self-sufficient to the point in which we're exporting informally to the neighboring countries, Niger, Chad, and the likes, and Cameroon. But now the situation has changed. I was speaking to you prior to coming on set because, of course, in Nasima Export Group, I represent exporters. The government is talking about non-oil. So a lot of the agricultural products, cocoa, cashew, sesame, cotton, Nigeria, cocoa, for example, used to be number one. We're a distant third. Number one right now in Africa is Cote d'Ivoire.
Cote d'Ivoire.
After Cote d'Ivoire is Ghana. After Cote d'Ivoire is around over 1 million tons. Ghana is about 750,000 tons. Nigeria is an abysmal. If the stats are anything to believe, it's between 200 and 250,000 tons. I mean, come on. The process of cocoa, I used to build cocoa house back in the day. Cotton, our yields are one of the lowest in Africa. One of the highest yields you have is in Burkina Faso. And why do you have that? A lot of dumping from the Chinese textile companies. So all those textile mills you had in Kaduna and everywhere else, almost 200 to 300 of them now, applying close to 20, 25, 30,000 people.
Talk to us about the, the economic impact of something like cocoa, for example. And as we were reading that, it just occurred to me that, as old as I am, I don't think I've ever seen this cocoa pod. I don't know if you've seen one.
No, but, really, I haven't.
Cashew, for example, Enugu State is known to have it in abundance.
See, cashew.
But when was the last time
cashew to a large extent? Cashew to a large extent grows in the wild. Okay, but again, we'll talk about the right policies, and I'll bring Olam in here, not because I want to score any political points or business points. As the largest exporter out of Nigeria, Olam exports processed cocoa, cashew, sesame, and cotton. What do? We go to states that have comparative. You know, I spoke at the beginning about having comparative advantage and speaking to your comparative advantage. If you have comparative advantage in something, they can only be competitive in that. But Nigeria wants to be competitive in everything. You can't be. That even goes against the grain of World Trade Organization rules. We are competitive in cocoa, cashew, sesame, and cotton. Sesame is what you put.
Even groundnuts.
Sesame is what you put. The toppings you put in McDonald's, your burger. That's what it's called. And Nigeria is the second largest exporter of that, after Sudan.
Amazing.
Between Sudan and Ethiopia, one is always first. Sudan, Ethiopia, Sudan, Ethiopia. We're the second largest exporter of sesame in the world. Cocoa, what do we have? The cocoa farmer you see now is the old cocoa farmer holding that pod, who is still using, the hand. Like I said, you spoke to something about agriculture being glamorous. Agriculture is not glamorous because what? We need to have cooperatives. Have these youths in cooperatives. That, I think, is what YAP sought to achieve. But whether they achieve that or not, I do not know. I have not done an assessment. I've always said that all these intervention funds, what doesn't measure doesn't get done. You can't have an intervention fund and you don't measure. Look at the milestones and say, okay, tick it and say, okay, this is year one of this. Let's do an appraisal. We never do that. What we do is we have an intervention fund and we just leave it and we say, okay, we let it run.
All right. When you talked about
talk lately about government trying to revamp the textile industry. One would have expected that the place to start from would be cotton.
Yeah, exactly. Cotton and the ginneries. I was on the program last week with the chairman of the Governors Forum, the governor of Zamfara State, and his state is well known for cotton, alongside Katsina. When you have UNTL and the rest, they even have football teams. If you remember back in the day, you had football teams, UNTL and all that. And what they are saying is that they are trying to come up with something. But my problem in Nigeria is that we always have to walk the talk. We always talk, but we never walk the talk. And the time for rhetoric is over. We have to walk the talk. People talk about Chatham House. People talk about going abroad to have meetings and all that. Yes, at different fora. What is the use going to discuss? And after you discuss, you come back and you do this. And you wait for the next meeting or the next forums holding somewhere. Do something about it. And I think this program this morning, speaking to this issue of food security, is not that you are being alarmist. You're just telling Nigeria to wake up and smell the coffee.
All right. Earlier, you talked about when we're talking about exporting cocoa, and you said we're exporting informally.
Yes.
What's
No, I mean exporting informally. I mean some of these things we export, I mean, go through the borders, and they're not captured in official data. Let me give you a quick example. Non-oil exports in Nigeria are around about 2013 was 2007 was around about $750 to $800 million. Non-oil exports by exporters, because I lead exporters in the Nasima Group, and that increased to around about 3 billion around 2013, 2014. But that has come down now to around about 1.5 billion. It has gone way down, and that's because the incentives. You see, another issue I like to speak to is incentives, whether you like it or not. Even the American government gives incentives to its farmers. Incentives was given to farmers, to companies, to help increase, improve yield. Right now, there are not incentives for farmers. Farmers don't have inputs, like I said. Farmers are not exposed to best farming practices, new technologies, and the likes, and they don't have access to land.
So what do you think? Informal
trade
exports that you talk about, it means then that Nigeria is losing a lot of revenue?
Precisely. A lot of revenue, definitely. Look at the issue of rice, for example. When the land borders were open, someone will bring in rice. I mean, rice is not something you can hide. It's better to capture rice, to bring in rice through the seaports, because you have a bill of lading, you have a ship that's taking it and all that. When you bring land through the land borders, maybe 100 trucks come in a day, and only probably 10 or 15 are captured. What happens to the remaining 90? They come in through the border, DT is not paid, and government loses revenue. Right now, as we speak, we don't have we're waiting for the rice policy, and I think the rice policy will be unveiled in not too distant future. But you need to unveil that rice policy quickly. That rice policy speaks to two things. It talks about the fact that, listen, we're not self-sufficient in rice yet. Yes, we want to make sure we're self-sufficient in the next 2 years or 3 years. But right now, you have to fill that void. A lot of the rice that comes into the country right now is smuggled rice. Benin Republic and Togo and the likes don't eat parboiled rice, but that's what we eat. The long grain rice, they don't eat it. So, and that rice comes in from Vietnam and Thailand, and which is where we import our rice from anyway. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. But Vietnam and Thailand have a concerted policy where they've said to themselves, we want to not only feed. I mean, they're feeding themselves already. But what they're done do is we want to export. And Thailand, I mean, a lot of you think probably Thailand is known strictly for massaging when you go to Phuket, but it goes beyond that. The Thai rice is one of the best. Vietnam, the same thing. So they have agricultural land that is strictly for rice. And what they do is they have a rice belt. Rice. And that's what they do. So when people come here and say, you have to have a policy, what Thailand and Vietnam is doing, we can do it. So you have to have what you call a clean revolution.
It's amazing too to hear that Niger State alone can actually provide enough rice for Nigeria and indeed Africa. But let's even talk about this NIMET projection that says about 11 states really should be prepared.
Yes.
Otherwise,
you see some
danger signs are there. What kind of preparations should these states be putting in place so that food security doesn't become a serious issue?
You see, a lot of the states need to do what you call an environmental impact assessment, okay, on the one hand. And two, prepare their ministries of agriculture. Their ministries of agriculture are usually ministries of agriculture and natural resources. Some of them have ministries of agriculture and water resources. So there has to be a nexus between agriculture and water resources. Again, take a lot of the NIMET data and bring experts to come and help you address the issues. I mean, what usually happens for Nigeria with respect to the flooding is usually the Lake Inyos, okay, from Cameroon. There's a lake in Cameroon called Lake Inyos. When it is opened, okay, they open it. Sometimes you talk about damming and not damming. When that happens, it releases a lot of water into the banks, okay? And that's to a large extent. You recall that around about 2009, 2010, thereabout, if I'm not mistaken.
2012?
2012, we had a major disaster. I mean, even our farm in Nasarawa was affected. But because of the fact that, we were already prepared for it. We lost a lot, but again, we just had to recoup. But then there was a serious food crisis then. But I think at that point in time, we had a bit of a strategic reserve. So right now, what is important for government, both national and subnational, is what you have to have what you call a strategic grain reserve. Have reserves. Just keep them there. When there are issues like this, you release that reserve. And when you release that reserve, part of those seeds and improved seedlings and all that, you release to farmers. But these farmers should come in cooperatives.
All right.
And again, outgrowers should be encouraged.
All right.
In any area where you have farming communities, or you have companies like
Clusters.
Olam, this and all that, all those big companies, what you should do is have those small farmer holdings. Let them cultivate. Give them farm out a bit of land to them. Let them grow for you. You offtake from them, so they are assured of all year round off-taking. And from that, you ensure to a large extent that they are okay. Because again, another problem is that these farmers, what is in season is what they will grow, what they will farm. Look at during the Obasanjo era, they talked about cassava. They all went on cassava, and all of a sudden after that, cassava, we're the largest producer of cassava in the world, but we still import starch. No, tell me, I mean, we're the largest producer of cassava in the world, but we still import starch.
Just like we're the largest exporter of leather in the world. I don't know if I'm exaggerating, but I hear that we're,
people talk about
up there.
People usually talk
Yet
about
we
people usually
import-
talk about Moroccan leather. Moroccan leather is not Moroccan leather. It is leather from the Kano tanneries. They are the ones that they use. They're not only ladies. I don't want to appear sexist. All the Louis Vuitton bags and all that. When they get to high street shops, they're leather from Kano, and that is leather that is exported, hides and skin. Wow. And that again speaks to the issue of protecting local industry by incentives. Export expansion grant is something that has been started since 2006. 2009, and it's something that should continue, and incentives, but incentives that speak to something, not incentives that speak to nothing.
All right. Ade Adefeko, VP Olam and Chairman Nasima Export Advocacy Group. Thanks for coming on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much.
And this conversation will continue.
We'll continue.